Hello everyone, and welcome back to Retro Legends. The Sega Model 2 isn't just an arcade board, it's a symbol of an era. When we think about the 90s arcades with their bright colors, techno soundtracks, and amazing 3D graphics, we can't ignore how much this amazing technology from Sega changed things. After the Model 1 did so well with games like Virtua Racing and Virtua Fighter, Sega was ready to push even further. The result was a groundbreaking design that would lead to some of the most famous arcade games ever. Let's get started! In 1993, the famous Sega AM2 team, led by the brilliant Yu Suzuki, started to design a new arcade system. They wanted it to be better than the Model 1, because even though the Model 1 brought 3D graphics to arcades, it was getting old fast in a market that was changing quickly. Players and arcade owners wanted games that looked better, moved smoother, and felt more real. This was also because other companies like Namco were making great games too. Sega's plan was big, to make a much more powerful system, one that could handle more complex 3D shapes, add textures, create shadows that moved, and make characters move in a lifelike way. To do this, Sega worked again with Lockheed Martin, a big American company that makes planes and defense stuff. Lockheed Martin had already helped Sega with the Model 1 chips, using technology from flight simulators. This time, Lockheed's help was even bigger. Their advanced knowledge in making 3D graphics in real time was used for arcade games. They focused on making it work fast and be cheap to make for many machines. The result was the Sega Model 2. This system changed what arcade games could be. More detail, more speed, more realism. It was made not just to look amazing, but to let game makers create believable, responsive, and exciting 3D worlds like never before. The Sega Model 2 was a real technical giant for its time, a big step forward that changed what arcade hardware could do in the early 90s. At the heart of the system was a strong Intel i960 CPU running at 25 MHz. This processor was first made for military and factory uses, but Sega picked it because it could do tricky math very quickly. It was also helped by two new custom graphics chips. These were made with Lockheed Martin and brought some of the most advanced picture-making tech, usually only seen in things like airplanes, to arcade games. But the real big deal wasn't just how powerful it was the new ways it could make things look on screen. The Model 2 was the first Sega system that could use texture mapping. This trick let them put pictures on the surfaces of shapes, making everything on screen look more real and deep. On top of that, it had moving shadows, better lighting, and smoother surfaces. All these things made the 3D worlds in the games look incredibly real for that time. The visual jump from Model 1 was huge. While Model 1 could only show plain, flat shapes, Model 2 showed colorful, detailed, and lively worlds that moved super smoothly. The very high frame rate, often a steady 60 frames per second, wasn't just about how pretty it looked. It actually made the game better to play. The controls felt snappy, movements were smooth, and you saw what was happening right away. This mix of strong graphics and great performance made the Model 2 one of the most important and long-lasting arcade systems of the 90s. It opened the door for many successful 3D games to come. The first big win for the Sega Model 2 was Virtua Fighter 2, which came out in 1994. It was a real game changer for fighting games and 3D graphics in arcades. The legendary AM2 team, led by Yu Suzuki, made it again. This game was a huge leap from its older version, which was already pretty amazing for its time. Virtua Fighter 2 had super smooth animations at 60 frames per second. It also had high-quality textures, more detailed backgrounds, and more lifelike 3D characters. This was all thanks to a better graphics engine that really used the new hardware to its fullest. But the coolest part was how they used motion capture, which was super advanced for back then. Suzuki and his team worked with real martial artists. They recorded their moves and put them into the game. This was very rare at the time. It made the animations look incredibly real. The moves flowed smoothly, and it felt like you were fighting a real person. This realism really made Virtua Fighter 2 stand out from other games, like Tekken and Battle Arena Toshinden. It made the game known for being super precise and having deep strategies. It was a hit all over the world. Virtua Fighter 2 arcade machines took over arcades and malls in Japan, the United States, and Europe. It became one of Sega's best-selling arcade machines ever. With its mix of advanced technology, cool new look, and fair gameplay, the game made the Model 2 the top arcade platform at the time. It also made Sega famous for being a leader in high-tech interactive entertainment. Virtua Fighter 2 wasn't just a big seller. It was also a huge step forward that changed how 3D games were made for many years. Another legendary game that really showed off what the Sega Model 2 could do was Daytona USA, which came out in 1994. It's still thought of as one of the best arcade racing games ever. Daytona USA wasn't just a game where you raced cars. It was a full experience for your senses, a rush of speed, music, and bright colors. With its tracks full of fast, curved turns, amazing loops, and cool designs, the game made you feel like you had control and everything moved so smoothly, which was new for its time. The steady picture, how well the steering wheel reacted, and being able to play with friends on linked machines, made Daytona a huge hit with fans. But one of the most famous parts was definitely the sound. The classic rolling start, sung by the composer Takanobu Mitsuyoshi himself, has stuck in the minds of gamers, becoming one of the most well-known songs in video game history. Back when arcade game music was often just simple computer sounds or fake noises, Daytona had original, fun, and powerful songs with singing that made the excitement of the race even bigger. The story behind how it was made is just as interesting. Daytona USA was made in less than a year, which was a huge job, with the clear goal of competing with Namco's Ridge Racer, which was getting a lot of attention in arcades. The Sega AM2 team had to work really fast, using every bit of the new Model 2 hardware to make a game that could stand up to, and maybe even be better than, its competitor. The result was even better than they hoped. Daytona USA became one of the most profitable and popular arcade games for a long time, staying in arcades for over 10 years. It was so successful that it shaped a whole generation of arcade racing games, leading to sequels, versions for home game systems, and many fan-made computer versions. For many, Daytona USA is the best example of the golden age of arcade racing, and a lasting symbol of Sega's talent and vision in the 90s. Behind the scenes, however, working with the Sega Model 2 was anything but simple. Although the hardware was cutting edge for its time, its technical complexity posed a formidable challenge even for the most experienced developers. Programmers and designers couldn't rely on user-friendly development environments or widespread middleware. There were no standardized tools, and development interfaces were primitive. Each game had to be written almost at the machine level, with highly specialized and optimized code to exploit every function of the custom-designed chips by Lockheed Martin. In particular, the Intel Y960 processor, a RISC architecture initially designed for military and industrial applications, was not easy for video game programmers to approach. The learning curve was steep, and it was often necessary to work side by side with hardware engineers to understand how to bypass bottlenecks or exploit undocumented tricks. The custom graphics units, capable of handling texture mapping, Z-buffering, and rudimentary shading, required in-depth knowledge of real-time 3D rendering techniques, which were still experimental at the time. Sega's internal teams, especially Yu Suzuki's AM2 and Hisawaguchi's AM3, also had to innovate in terms of production. Many of the technologies used in Model 2 games were custom developed, including the pioneering motion capture system, personalized modeling tools, and workflows built entirely from scratch. The development of a single title required almost surgical optimization, where every instruction counted and every asset was modeled and compressed with meticulous care to fit within memory limits and still guarantee a stable 60 FPS frame rate. In a sense, programming on Model 2 was more akin to aerospace engineering than traditional game design. Yet precisely this difficulty contributed to forging a generation of highly specialized developers who would define the standards of modern arcade gaming. The struggle against hardware limitations thus became fertile ground for technical creativity, leading to the birth of legendary titles that still represent the pinnacle of Sega's arcade era. Sega Rally Championship, released in 1995, represents one of the highest peaks ever reached by the arcade racing genre and one of the most brilliant applications of the Model 2's potential. Unlike other driving games of the time, which focused on frantic speeds and spectacular scenarios, Sega Rally sought a perfect balance between realism and playability, introducing innovative mechanics that we now consider fundamental. The title featured an advanced vehicle physics system capable of simulating in real time the behavior of cars on different surfaces such as asphalt, mud, and gravel, each with tangible effects on traction, road holding, and drifts. It was the first time an arcade game managed to convey a true sense of driving difference, depending on the terrain faced. Furthermore, the inclusion of dynamic atmospheric effects, such as rain-altering grip, and sophisticated management of weight and suspension feedback, helped make every race unpredictable and engaging. The track design, inspired by real locations, combined with clean and fluid 60 FPS graphics, made the visual and sensory experience extremely immersive for the standards of the time. Even the artificial intelligence was surprisingly advanced. Opponents adapted their driving based on the player's position. They didn't simply follow fixed trajectories, but showed credible competitive behaviors, simulating a true duel between drivers. All of this, combined with an iconic sound design and the famous co-driver's voice, "Easy right, hard left," helped engrave Sega Rally into the collective memory of arcade goers. Its success was such that the game was converted to Saturn, PC, and later Dreamcast, but no home version of the time was able to fully replicate the precision, speed, and responsiveness of the original Model 2. Sega Rally quickly became a benchmark for driving games, paving the way for more complex and realistic titles, while always maintaining that perfect balance between simulation and immediate fun that made it unique. One of the most interesting and strategically brilliant features of the Sega Model 2 was its modular and scalable structure, designed to evolve over time without requiring hardware revolutions. This approach resulted in the production of several motherboard revisions, identified as Model 2A, 2B, 2C, and finally 2CRX. Each of these versions introduced targeted improvements to graphic performance, stability, texture management, and compatibility with more advanced visual effects, while maintaining a common architectural base. This technical choice proved crucial not only for Sega, but also for arcade operators, who could update their cabinets by simply replacing some motherboard modules or updating the software without having to invest in a new complete system every time. The Model 2 ACRX, for example, represented the most powerful revision in the series, designed to handle more complex titles like Sega Touring Car Championship or Dead or Alive, introducing optimizations in texture and frame rate management and improving anti-aliasing and lighting effects. This modularity allowed Sega to extend the commercial life of the platform well beyond initial expectations, avoiding the rapid obsolescence that had affected many other previous arcade systems. Furthermore, this architecture allowed internal developers, such as AM2, AM3, AM4, and external studios to exploit the hardware with greater flexibility, creating increasingly ambitious games as the years passed, without the need to learn how to program on a completely new system. In a rapidly evolving industry like the 1990s arcade scene, this modular philosophy represented a competitive advantage. Sega could remain technologically advanced, reducing production costs, facilitating cabinet maintenance, and offering arcade managers an updated yet economically sustainable product line. The Model 2 was not just a powerful board, but also a platform designed to last and adapt, once again demonstrating Sega's engineering and business vision during that golden age. In the thick of the fierce arcade war of the early 90s, the Sega Model 2 found itself competing in a rapidly transforming technological landscape, dominated by top-tier rivals. The Namco System 22, for example, was a cutting-edge system that powered hits like Ridge Racer, Time Crisis, and Cyber Sled. Thanks to support for mapped textures and curved polygons, the System 22 was a formidable competitor, especially in the racing and rail shooter sectors, bringing a more refined and cinematic aesthetic to arcades. At the same time, SNK's Neo Geo MVS, while technically tied to 2D, continued to dominate thanks to a very strong library, made up of legendary fighting games, King of Fighters, Samurai Showdown, Metal Slug, and a devoted fanbase. In this highly competitive context, Sega couldn't simply keep up. It had to raise the bar. The Model 2 was Sega's Trojan horse for changing the rules of the game. It wasn't just about having better graphics. It was the beginning of a new era of 3D, that of fluid, textured, detailed, and fast 3D, which surpassed the simple, raw, polygonal structures of the Model 1. Model 2 games not only showed credible three-dimensional environments, but they did so with a fluidity of 60 frames per second, realistic animations, advanced lighting effects, and models that moved with unprecedented naturalness. Titles like Virtua Fighter 2, Daytona USA, Sega Rally, and Virtua Cop redefined what the public expected from an arcade video game. This evolution wasn't confined to arcades. Player expectations changed radically. Anyone who tried a Model 2 game would hardly settle for the home consoles of the time, such as the Super Nintendo or the Mega Drive, which suddenly seemed archaic. This technological pressure helped push the console sector towards accelerated 3D, leading to the market arrival of Sony's PlayStation, the Sega Saturn, and, shortly after, the Nintendo 64. All machines designed in different ways to try and bridge the gap with the arcade experience. In practice, the Model 2 didn't just win a technological battle, but triggered a structural change in the entire video game industry. Arcades transformed into showcases for 3D avant-garde, and the gap between arcade cabinets and home consoles became a central theme in debates among enthusiasts and developers. Sega, with the Model 2, wasn't just building a powerful board, it was designing the future of video games, pushing the entire medium towards new frontiers of realism and immersion. The Sega Model 2 was a fundamental launchpad for future generations of arcades and consoles. Many of the concepts and technologies developed for the Model 2 later flowed into the Sega Model 3 and also influenced the design of the Sega Saturn and, in part, the Dreamcast. Its impact is still felt today, the sense of speed, the visual realism, the vehicle physics. It all has roots in this incredible board. The Model 2 is not just a piece of hardware history, it's the soul of an unrepeatable era, a machine that made millions of players dream, that revolutionized the technical approach to arcade gaming, and that marked the creative peak of a Sega in a state of grace. Remembering it today is not just an exercise in nostalgia, but a way to pay homage to one of the most influential platforms ever created. If you love arcade games, the Model 2 is a chapter that cannot be missing from your gaming culture.
Aren't you about ready?
And with that, our trip down memory lane comes to an end. How many of these fun facts did you already know? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell for more trips into the world of retro gaming. Thanks for watching Retro Legends, and we'll see you in the next video. Stay retro, stay legends!